good evening, everyone. Again, we are going to talk about the proposed 24-25 budget for this fiscal year upcoming. Now, this is going to be the exact same presentation that I have given the previous two times. Now, I want everyone to know, if you have come to previous ones and you've made comments, we have made note of that. And we are keeping track of that, and we are keeping both Mr. Smith and the board abreast. But for complete transparency for all of our stakeholders who may not have had the opportunity to attend one of our other community meetings, we're going to do the same presentation again. So again, per the Louisiana Revised Statute 39-1307, this is the reason we do what we do. We have to have notice in the newspaper. We have to provide the budget to the public. We did it on May 20th. We had our first public hearing on June 6th, and we'll have another public hearing on Thursday the 20th, and that'll be the first time the board has the opportunity to vote on the budget. So the budget approval timing, again, we must have everything done and submitted to the state by September 30th. Our goal is always to have our budget approved by June 30th because July 1st is the beginning of our fiscal year and everything resets. We want to have our salary schedule right. We want to have everything ready to go when July 1 starts. So our guiding principles, we always want our total revenues to be higher or equal to our expenditures. It's just like your checkbook. You want to have more money than you have expenditures. So our strategic planning for the proposed budget this year, Superintendent Smith and I worked with our board and we talked to them and we said, what do you want for our students? What are the guiding principles? And we looked back to the strategic plan that was approved by our board back in July of 2021. And these were the things that they talked about were their highest priorities: early childhood, literacy, high-dose tutoring, college and career readiness, and attendance and truancy. And so that was the backbone of our budget when we built it forward. So our revenues, where do we get our money from? So for our general fund, we get money from ad valorem, our property taxes. We get money from sales taxes. We get money from our other local sources, which could be our Medicaid reimbursements. We get money from the state on a per-child basis called our MFP, and we get federal indirect costs, which basically is money that we receive for running the grants and receiving reimbursements. We have our special revenue sources. These are our grants and our propositions. These are not the general fund. These are separate sources of income. We have federal grants, which are like Title and IDEA for our special ed students. We have our state grants, inclusive of early childhood and literacy. And we have local grants, and that can be funding for eye care all the way to our internship program. So total revenue over time. So this shows you a full and complete picture of revenue over a period of time. So our navy bars right here is our general fund. Our gray bars are going to be our special revenues. Those are our grant funds again. Our green bar is going to be the addition of those two bars together. So our total revenue for that year. Right here you see this blue line. This is the total number of traditional district students we have as of that fiscal year. The line above is the total number of students in the district in total. That is inclusive of our district traditional students, our Type 1, Type 2, and Type 5 charters. Down here you see our total number of employees, because not only do we make sure we count our students every year, we count our staff. So we look over here all the way to the right and see 2018-19, our general fund revenue was $442.9 million. Special revenue was $187.2, so our total revenues that year was $630.1 million. You move forward this year, our total projected for this year is $578.9 million in our general fund, $223.8 million in our special revenue grants, and $802.7 million overall, all of our funding. And as you can see right now here, you can see the hump. This is the ESSER effect. This is the ESSER money coming in, and the ESSER money is now ending. So our projected revenues versus net revenues. So people have asked me, how are charter schools funded? So charter schools receive their portion of the MFP, which is the per student amount we receive from the state, and they also receive their portion of all property taxes and all sales taxes. Now, who gets property and sales taxes? Well, only the general fund receives any property taxes, but our propositions 1, 2, and 3 also receive sales taxes. So this is just a quick overview of how much those four sources in total received in revenue and how much was then transferred back out to support our children in charter schools. So over here, our navy blue line is going to be our revenue. Our gray and green are going to be your charter school amounts. And your lighter blue bar is going to be the total amount remaining at the district for your traditional students. So back in 2018-19, we had a total revenue of $488.8. We had approximately $81 million in charter school transfers for a total of $407.4 million remaining for traditional students. If you move all the way forward to 24-25, we have $632.5 million projected in those four revenue sources. We have approximately $153.2 million going to charter schools, and you're just asking, well, what's the difference? Charter schools grew. There's more activity in charter schools than there were back in 18-19. There are more schools. For our total remaining $479.1 million for our district traditional schools. So our total expenditures, again, it's the money that we use to operate our schools so that our staff and our students can receive an education. And I put these in the same categories that I report to the state. And the reason I do that is I think it's important for consistency for you to understand when I talk about something, this is what I'm talking about. So salaries and benefits, that's pretty easy. That's how much we pay our staff. Professional services, that'll be your contracts. Property services and other purchase services, this could be utility bills, this could be travel, this could be internet and telephone, important things that we need at all of our schools. Materials and supplies, easy things. We need textbooks, we need library books, we need pens and pencils. Property, that can be the purchase of a piece of property, that can be purchases of items for our tax plan when they build the buildings, that can be school buses. And appropriations, the vast majority of this is going to be our payments to our charter schools. So total expenditures over time. This is very similar to the chart you just saw for revenues. Again, our navy blue line is going to be our general fund. Our gray lines are going to be our special revenue or our grant funding. Our green lines is going to be the total of the two combined. As you can see again, we have the light blue line. That's going to be your total number of traditional students at any point in time at that year. And the navy blue line is going to be the total amount of total students in the district, inclusive of type 1, type 2, and type 5. So in 2018-19, there were a total of $470.4 million in expenditures out of the general fund. You had $181 million in special revenue for a total of $651.4 million in expenditures. Moving forward, we're projecting $574.6 million in expenditures for the general fund, $179.2 for our special revenue, and a total of $753.8 million overall expenditures. So our general fund financial summary, we came out with an actual ending balance of $48.9 million left over in our general fund for a total ending fund balance of $141.4 million in 22-23. The vast majority of that was your indirect costs coming from your ESSER funds. For our revised 23-24, which was just approved on May 23rd, we have a negative balance of $5.2 million. And an ending fund balance of $136.2 million. Still an excellent fund balance for a district our size. Moving forward, for our proposed 24-25, we are projecting $4.2 million remaining in our general fund and a total ending fund balance of $105.5 million with a $35 million transfer. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. So the total fund balance over history, I think this is a great slide because it truly gives you a full overview. So in 2018-19, we had a fund balance of $43.4 million. And you move all the way forward to 23-24, and we have $136.2 million. And the vast majority of this came from ESSER funding. It was an opportunity that is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for every district in the country. And this is what happened. So our summary for our proposed budget is we are proposing a balanced budget. So our revenues, as we stated before, are going to be $578.9 million, total expenditures $574.6 million for an ending balance of $4.2 million. So what changed this year? Ad valorem, our property taxes. While ESSER is going away, we benefited from the fact that 2024 is a reassessment year for the East Baton Rouge Parish. And so through reassessment and rolling forward the millage, we're looking at a 10% increase projected. Sales tax is beginning to flatten back out. We're not going to see the levels we saw during COVID. 1.5% or $1.9 million increase for the year. MFP, it's going to go up about $7.8 million. With the sales tax leveling back off, everything is going to return back to the way it was at the MFP prior to COVID. And federal indirect costs, we're going to have that decrease. That's what we're talking about, the ESSER effect. We're going to reduce by $12.9 million. So projected expenditure changes. So what is changing? So for our salaries and our benefits, they're both going to go up. 215.2 for our salaries, 101.3 for our benefits. Obviously, while ESSER is ending, we still need staff. We still need opportunities for our ESL and our exceptional student services. We need transportation routing. We need support and school admin raises. These are things that are going to be included in those salaries. For professional services, they're going to reduce to $18.2 million. After review with both the superintendent and board leadership, we reviewed every contract in the district, and we looked to see what was duplicate services, what was not working, and what was the most beneficial to the most of our students. And that is where we're going to put our money so that every child can have the opportunity to succeed. For property services, again, we're going to increase leased buses. And the reason we're going to do that is we're going to make sure that every child has a bus to get them to school so that they can learn in the opportunities they have. Other purchase services is going to increase by $12.7 million. As you've all probably seen, property insurances are increasing. They increase for us as well. And dual enrollment is going to continue to grow. So we've gotten through the 10th grade, so now we have to include the 11th and the 12th grade and keep going. Materials and supplies, library books, and textbooks are going to come back to the general fund. These were wonderful opportunities that ESSER provided us, but they're all going to come back because obviously we need materials and supplies for our students. And increases in utilities. Property, again, that's going to decrease. We're going to go to leased buses. We're not going to buy as many traditional buses as we used to make sure that our overworked mechanic shop can keep up and that every student has a ride to school. And appropriations, the board stipends are ending. Disaster relief funds are ending, but we are still increasing slightly in charter schools. So strategic planning, again, it always goes back to the key goals of the board and the district. Early childhood will spend approximately $18.1 million on our youngest learners. Literacy, $17.1 million. High-dose tutoring, $3.7 million. College and career readiness, $17.5 million. And attendance and truancy, $7.7 million. So our teacher recruitment and retention, we are proposing a district raise for every employee in the district. A $2,200 raise for all staff on the teacher salary schedule, $1,500 for our principals and assistant principals, and $1,300 for every other staff member not included on the AD 101 salary schedule listing, which is your highest level, the chiefs. The school achievement stipend is a scale level based stipend based upon the SPS of the score of the school, and the opportunity is for the employees at that school to receive a stipend. The AUS school stipend is a $2,000 stipend provided to all teaching staff that is willing to commit and stay at some of our highest need schools. And obviously the LDOA differentiated stipend that's going to be provided again will ensure that all of our highly effective teachers continue their stipend that they receive from positive compass reviews. So let's talk about a 23-24 compensation for staff. For our first year teacher, received $47,800. The board stipend was $2,000. LDOE was $2,000 for a total compensation of $51,800. The proposed opportunity for this time, if you're an A-rated school, a first-year teacher, $47,800. Proposed raise, that is a guaranteed raise of $2,200. You have two results-driven stipends opportunities for you. You have your effective rating stipend, which is $550 for a highly effective teacher, and the school achievement stipend, which we're going to talk about in just a second, an additional $500 for a total of $51,050. If you are one of our F-rated schools, and you are a first-year teacher at $47,800, you receive the $2,200 proposed raise, and you have three opportunities for stipends. Effective rating stipend of $550 for a highly effective teacher. The $1,500 for the school achievement stipend, which again is based upon the SPS of your school. The AUS retention stipend, $2,000 if you commit and stay at one of our rated schools, for a total compensation possible of $54,050. So how will this be funded? We are going to make a transfer to the general fund reserve out of our fund balance. We have a very large fund balance, and it's going to give us the opportunity to do the best things for our students and for our staff. Moving forward, the general fund will maintain their 15% policy goal, and the additional funds will move into this account every year to maintain both salaries and stipends for our employees. So what is the school achievement stipend I keep talking about? This scale level stipend. So SPS range. The SPS is basically what did the school score on the LEAP test? I mean, that is in a gist what it is. How did they do on the state test? If you are an SPS school of 80 or higher, that is an AB school. And you earn top gains and opportunity honors, which means not only do you keep and maintain your level, but you increase a subcategory, whether it be economically disadvantaged possibly, you raise their scores. Every instructional employee on that staff will receive $500. Schools with an SPS of 50 to 79.9, these are your CD schools. If you increase your SPS by a letter grade or by a full 5 points, they all receive $750. If you are a school that is an F and you either exit AUS status, or if you're below 40 and you move 8 points, every instructional employee will receive $1,500. And this is an opportunity for our schools to work together as a team, to collaborate together to move the children of our district. So what is the AUS retention stipend? It is exactly what it sounds like. If you commit and stay at one of our most needy schools, we will offer you $2,000 in additional stipend to do that. Now, this is for teaching staff. You must have a school roster, and you cannot have more than 10 days of leave, because our students learn best when their teacher is there with them every day. So operational considerations. We've talked a lot about our students, which obviously most important thing that we do. But let's talk about the operations, the back end of the schools. So transportation, we're earmarking funds for GPS and camera installation so that we make sure both our drivers and our students are safe. Facilities, we have $500,000 for fencing, and we were working on grants that will match that amount for us so that we can increase the fencing and the safety at our schools. And another $1 million for grounds, again, to increase the safety of our schools for both our students and our staff. Security, we have increased by $300,000 for on the boots ground security, which would include your sheriff's office, your city police. They work those extra hours and they're on our schools working with our students. And camera installation. So opportunities within the district, again, the approval of the roll forward of the millage. It is a reassessment year for us, and that is a wonderful opportunity. We will continue to look at opportunities throughout the district, whether that be at our school level or at the district level. Our superintendent has encouraged all of us and is working with us to make sure that we can deliver all of our work more efficiently and more effectively throughout our time. Again, this is the budget timeline. It does include June 6th, which was when we had the first public hearing, June 20th. It did not include these 3 public meetings in the community. This will be the last one. The budget will be an opportunity to be approved on Thursday night. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Before I open it up to any questions, I want to acknowledge our Vice President, Patrick Martin, and the open forum. I know that I forgot to mention the reason why we have this big production we just have to, the board has a big task we have to do this evening. So it's not because of the budget presentation, but we have to.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Smith. I don't have much to say. They've done an exceptional job explaining the budget. I just want to emphasize this is the opportunity for us to hear from you. My colleague Emily Soule on the board has joined us. Now I know some of the rest of the board members are floating in shortly. So we really want to hear from you, your comments, your questions Because this is a work in progress, there's going to be, some more changes made in the next few days before we vote on it based on the continuous level of feedback that we've gotten from the public and members of the board. So tonight is really when we want to hear from y'all about what you think our priorities should be, and what you think about how we're choosing to address and fund it in this proposed budget.
And if you don't have any questions, come back and think Thursday. We'll have another public hearing on the
Yes, sir.
budget. And if you have questions, you can always come to the mic next question. First question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rachel, and I had a question about the presentation regarding the different stipend amounts. And I know, what research, or did you find any other districts that had similar incremental amounts for rewarding success in the classroom? And also, so maybe multiple questions. So my biggest question at this point is, what did you all utilize to get the amounts? And is there any way to make it more competitive for the teachers?
As it relates to the actual stipends, no. There was no necessarily research to see how, we recruit teachers. The actual pay increase was more being competitive around surrounding districts. We wanted to make sure that we at least had the opportunity to start our teachers off, the starting teachers off with $50,000. And when we had conversations with the board, because the original proposal was $1,300 across the board for permanent pay raises. So we went back after hearing feedback from our board members as well as our constituents and employees. We went back and increased the pay raise. But then there was also conversation of how do we recruit and retain those teachers at those schools, that, I hate to call them AUS, but academically unacceptable, but those schools who need the most support. And so here's the thing about a budget. The budget is not edged in stone. The budget is flexible. And so even around support staff, I know that in the back of the budget you see a compilation of how you get a teacher-pupil ratio, but those things change throughout the year based off school needs. And for those schools that are on that list for academic unacceptable, for me, once we get back to diagnostic data, because right now everything is proposed. We don't know who will actually show up at the beginning of the year, and so once we get the diagnostic data and we have opportunity to go back and see who's actually in the buildings, and then you begin to provide more supports for those schools. And so, but it was no necessarily research done to look at what we would pay to try to recruit and retain. I know one thing that we did not want to do was give a whole lot of money up front from what we've learned in the past. We pay these stipends out, and then employees leave.
EBR broke my arm. No, yes, all right. My name is Valencia Johnson, and I'm the president of the East Baton Rouge Parish Association of Education and Educators. I'm sorry. With the signing of House Bill 205 tomorrow, that is the equal pay, or paying people for the supplemental activities that they do outside of work. How are we going to make sure that we have the funds to pay, and what would that look like? Because I'm told that the district is supposed to have a pay schedule for those extra duties. So what would that look like for EBR? That bill is for extra duties that you do outside of your working hours, or if you're asked to hold a class during your planning period, you are now by law have to be paid for those duties. And so that bill was a bill that was brought to you by the Louisiana Association of Educators. So if you're not a member, you need to be a member. But It is state law, and it will be signed tomorrow by the governor at 11 o'clock. So if you want to be a part of that, you might want to come down and sign. But since we know that is, and we're in our budget talks, I wanted to make sure that we have what we need in order to make sure that we are able to pay our teachers for those extra duties, or we're not going to ask them to do any of those extra duties like open house and all of that good stuff.
Well, actually, we're working with council to make certain that we have things that are adopted that we know that teachers are required to do, you know, like with planning and things of that nature. And we're working with some of our surrounding parishes to make sure that we all kind of align with what those extra duties are. For example, you know, one of the questions I asked, what about athletic events? You know, and should we incorporate, well, maybe there's so many athletic events you should attend. You know, if you're a teacher, you need to be a part of that community. You know, I was a classroom teacher. Many of us in this room were classroom teachers, and there are certain things that I think as a teacher you would want to be a part of because it involves students. And so we're going to make sure that we list those things that are outside the normal scope of what a teacher should be do. And we will have funds for those things that are extra, that are not considered part of the normal workflow of a classroom teacher, but we will have funds for that. Yeah.
So making sure that you know that if they're not a coach and they're asked to come, if they're asked to come or be at a game outside of their regular working hours, then they have to be paid.
Yeah. And that has to be adopted by schools by June 30th. And so hopefully we'll have it in place this Thursday, maybe. Mr. Shamlin? How you doing, ma'am?
Hey, I'm good, thanks. Hello, my name is Penny Mae Landry, and I'm a citizens advocate, and I'm getting involved in education in East Baton Rouge. Has there ever been a consideration or a study to introduce into the East Baton Rouge public school system boarding schools to take the truancy, the kids with the special behavioral needs out of the family environment that is sometimes a cause of the behavior, and to start to introduce more of a boarding school type school structure so that they have a good home environment. That's question one. And the other, is there anything in the budget to include having farm or garden classrooms, outdoor garden classrooms at every school to teach children how to grow food, how to prepare food, about this great Louisiana, environment that we have for farming and, whatever. So, thinking outside the box, looking at curriculum changes that include more life skills, and then also the boarding school concept. I know it is being brought back in a lot of school districts across the country where they're dealing with, family environments that are great for these children.
Great questions. I think we have a school that's already established in the parish. It's called Thrive. Thrive. It is, Thrive. And actually one of our...
And it is where they live?
It's where they live. They stay with the entire day. They sleep over. I think they go... Thrive has how many, Andrew? I know you're on the board.
275, and they go home on the weekends?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Mr. That's right.
Hi, I am one of the founding board members of the Thrive Charter School. It started,
Is it funded by the East Baton Rouge budget?
I'm going to get there, okay? It started off as a type 1 charter which was part of, under the East Baton Rouge system. But then it has now become a state school, which means it's under the legislature, and it is funded the same way as the school in Natchitoches is, and NOCA in New Orleans. And the reason that is because the boarding component is about cost. If you take the cost of educating a kid, you have to double that to get to the boarding component. And because you have all kind of residential staff advisors and all those sorts of things. So that is up and running. I think it's about 300 students now. Their first graduating class was like 5 years ago or something like that. So we do have that option available, but it is a very expensive option.
Well, so to my question, East Baton Rouge itself, the school system does not have any funding for these type of schools?
No, East Baton Rouge only was doing the funding as a charter school, but that charter school funding did not cover the cost of the residential part.
And do you have any data that supports these children who have graduated, that they've gone on to be contributing members to the society?
Yes, the Thrive people can easily give you that information.
Okay.
Their first graduating class of 19, all 19 members of that first graduating class were the first people to graduate from high school in their family.
Wow.
So, and it's 100% economically disadvantaged and all that sort of stuff. So you contact Thrive, they can give you much more information.
So what is the actual population of the East Baton Rouge school? How many students are in East Baton Rouge schools?
We have roughly
40,000.
40,000 students.
40,000, thank you.
And we have more information about Thrive.
So I don't work directly with this program, but she had a question about agriculture and farming. This year, we're implementing, now it's a pilot program at our alternative schools where we will have agriculture, we will have actual animals. They're just bringing those in. They brought the pigs in the other day. So we're working on that, but you have to start small. I've visited charter schools and other public schools throughout the nation that do that, and you have to start small and move up because you need to make sure you have all the things you need to protect the students and the animals. And then, I didn't know if you knew about that, Mr. Smith.
And we have something from Ms. Bennett, who's the principal here at Southeast Middle. She would like to share her farming program, fresh food.
Hi. So here at Southeast Middle, we do have an agri-science program. It is run by Miss Susan Varnado. What our students do, we have chickens, we have a garden in the back as well. So what those students do, not only do they learn how to cultivate, how to grow, how to take care of the animals, how to bring in the eggs from the chickens, but they also learn how to properly prepare the food, how to cook it, and they also do celebrations within the classroom with that. But that was a program that we started several years ago with our former principal, Ms. Boyd, and it is held on, and the students love it. Yes, ma'am.
So is it funded through this budget or through a grant or something else?
That is a CATE class, Career and Tech Ed class, so yes, it is funded through the budget.
And so what percentage of the budget as proposed now for the 24-25 school year will go to programs like you just expressed?
What's the college and career?
$17.5 million.
Roughly around $17.5 million that operates that Kate Career and College
$17.5
Readiness.
million
Yeah.
to go towards
Career
implementing
and
these
college
type of
readiness.
programs
Yeah.
in other schools.
Yeah, and what's the actual, it's on the tip of my tongue, the grant that we received for Kate Perkins, Carl's Perkins loan grant that we received.
I just wanted to, I was looking over the special ed increases, and I just wanted to say that I applaud Superintendent Smith for bringing special ed into compliance and increasing our numbers with the paras and the teachers. To finally be able to do something about something that you've seen, and I know your hands were tied previously, and I applaud you for finally doing that. I also do want to ask that the board put a waiver in place for individuals who have good reason, maybe maternity leave, FMLA leave, for missing more than 10 days on the stipend, but show improvement. Their kids still grow, not just absent, because I do want teachers coming to work. You come to work, people. But if they have a good reason for missing, I do want there to be a waiver that they can apply for if they still show growth. Thank you.
Most definitely, that's one of the things that we're looking at. And before we have any other questions, I'd just like to acknowledge two more of our board members. You just heard from Mike Goday, and we have also Coach Cliff Lewis here representing as one of our board members. And Emily, Patrick introduced Emily. She came in.
My name is Emmy Cormier. I'm a proud product of EBR and a proud parent as well of two EBR students. We didn't hear anything about increase in salary or money to bus drivers or cafeteria workers. The beginning of last school year, my family was personally affected by the strike. We were personally affected by the school buses and school drivers shortage. We did hear information about leasing more school buses, but it's my understanding that we were also short several hundred drivers, and we had empty operable school buses that we did not have a driver for. We, myself, and several parents were able to come up with a community school bus stop, actually in the parking lot of this school. Mercifully, the school allowed us to do that. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we were no trouble to you. We started out with the required 20 students and ended up with 37 students on the school bus. We had an absolutely wonderful driver. He was wonderful. Mr. Randolph, shout out to Mr. Randolph, and it ran smoothly. But that was self-help that the parents had to do themselves. We had to go to PTA meetings, I had to go to Facebook pages, beg for people to give this bus a shot. I'm willing to do that again, and the parents involved in the bus are willing to do that again. What I'm concerned about is that, are we going to have the same crisis? We have no head of transportation, we have no increase to cost for bus driver pay, cafeteria pay, and they struck at the beginning of the school year last year. And I'm concerned that if we don't address that, it's going to happen again. And again, if we don't have enough competitive pay for bus drivers, we can lease all the buses we want. If they sit in an empty parking lot, that's going to be a problem.
Great point. And actually, we do have a pay increase for all of our employees, which includes bus drivers and cafeteria. They will receive $1,300 across the board. So, and actually, for my superintendent's report in next Thursday, I would like to give an update. I will give an update on transportation. We've been working with outside consultants, and so what I'll do, I'll share my finding with the outside consultant, Lean Frog, and the transportation has started implementing some things that would improve transportation. So I don't think we will have the same concerns. Actually, I know we won't have the same concerns at the start of the school year. One of the challenges, as I can appreciate from the start of the school year, that kind of caused some of the concerns was that they eliminated transfer point.
Which I agree with.
Yeah. Yeah.
5-year-olds should not be at a transfer bus. They should
Yeah,
not.
but the challenge was that what I'm hearing from the actual consultant, we probably shouldn't have went that route because we didn't have the available buses and resources to do that. So, but
So are you saying that elementary is going to be transfer again?
we still have the same transfer point, but actually what we're doing is of course, we're leasing the buses because one of the challenges that we found was that we don't have enough mechanics to keep the buses on the road. So that's the reason why we're doing the leasing, because once you lease, the repairs are also included in the lease. And so we have enough buses, but the challenge is when they break down, we can't get them fixed readily enough to get them back on the road. And so, but I'll have a detailed report that I'll share with the board, and it'll be public.
So I'm sorry, we're going to be leasing buses, and our buses that are inoperable are going to sit in a parking lot. So we're going to pay extra to lease the bus.
No,
Okay.
no, we're leasing buses to cover some of those gaps where we have shortages. But the buses, we auctioned some buses that are no longer operable, but we are repairing buses this summer that are that we had some challenges with getting them on the road. So we won't have the same issues. Everything okay? We won't have the same issues that we had at the start of the school year. But I'll share that in the report in my superintendent's update on Thursday.
It would be important for the public to know that those people are getting raises. That was not mentioned one time in this budget. Only the teacher stipend. Okay, all right, excuse me.
Yeah, I saw when you came and you stepped in a little bit late.
It was on the first slide.
Yeah, no problem. But great question. I appreciate your concern.
superintendent report, but you mentioned that there's a backlog at the mechanics shop. What efforts are being made to kind of reduce that bottleneck? Do we need to hire more mechanics, or are there any efforts being made currently?
That would be some of the recommendation that comes out in the report from our external, and actually we don't actually have true mechanics. In that market, there's a shortage across the country, state. I mean, if you take your vehicle to get repaired, it might take months. And so competitive salary is a challenge, but also that's one of the reasons why we need to actually do leasing versus the actual buying of buses because of that issue.
Can you partner with East Baton Rouge Metro Council to use their mechanics?
I'm not aware that they have mechanics, but that's something we can certainly look at if that's an option.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, everyone. I want to ask about substitutes, because I know at my school, sometimes it was kind of hard getting a substitute, and so we had to split our kids. And I'm just wondering if you guys have talked about, or is there a solution about substitutes this year, upcoming year? Thank you.
Great question. And Ms. Lopez can tell me the exact numbers, because actually we're bringing the substitute back in-house. Last year, we kind of contracted with an outside agency, ESS. I don't know exactly what the acronym stands for, but we increased the substitute pay. So I think it's 100 and...
For a certified teacher per day, yes.
Yeah,
Increased it.
we increased it across the board for substitute pay. To be competitive, make sure that we can get retired teachers in is $150 for non-certified is $100 a day, and
90, 100, and 150
The-
if you're certified, you're long-term, and I have to go back.
yeah, we increased the pay
Yeah.
across the board, so.
What about retired teachers? Retired teachers would get the exact same pay. You have to work with TRSL to make sure there's not a conflict with that. That's the only concern with retired teachers.
How much is in the budget for outside consulting?
Outside consulting? Actually, for strategic consulting for the board, that's $500,000 for board members for outside consulting.
500,000?
$500,000 for strategic plan.
Like to pay for the company that put on the first 3 community meetings? I think they made $28,000.
It could be, it could be.
Would it be better use of taxpayer dollars to create a position called community outreach and hire people instead of hiring outside consultants, hire people in East Baton Rouge? Because I know the company that put on those meetings was from Atlanta. I mean, is there any criteria in the budget to hire local and stop hiring all of these, using taxpayer money to hire all of these consultants?
And generally, the board, we go through a procurement process. You know, they put out an RFP, RFI, whatever, RFP, RFQ, and things of that nature, and they put in certain criteria for outside consultants. But that particular vendor that I think that was used for the community service was the same vendor that supported us with accreditation. So they were quite familiar with the district. For whatever reason, the reason why the board selected that particular vendor, I can't speak to that. I mean, that'll be something that the board would have to answer. But, you know, but I do believe that there is a need sometimes to seek external experts to come in to assist with problem solving.
Now, I'd just like to make a request that in the budgeting process, it be tightened up to have less outside
Outside.
consulting and more, you know,
And-
local and actually creating positions that people can work in.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good point.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin White Clark, a National Board Certified Teacher here in East Baton Rouge Parish. I want to thank the board and the Hands on Deck for providing the school achievement score bump or opportunity for those of us who work on the school campus
It's not just the person in the testing grades, although they carry a heavy load. Just being a teacher in itself is a heavy load. And everyone, no matter what grade you are in at a school, contributes to the success of that child, whether you're doing morning duty or relieving another teacher, or you're working as a paraprofessional or some resource teacher, or whatever hands-on deck you're doing at a school is appreciated. And there is a synergy that happens on a school campus, and that does support not only the school culture, but the advancement, the academic advancement of the students on campus. So kudos to those who thought about that. I think I worked at a school for about 7 years. I think it was an F school with no additional compensation while I was working on my national board certification. So it's nice to see, you know, in the rearview mirror that it's being paid forward so that everyone has a value in the school performance score. And second, my second question I guess my first question is about the buses and the cameras being placed on the leased buses. If you're placing cameras on a leased bus, when that lease is over, will you be able to take that camera off? Will it still be usable? Can you keep recycling it? Or does it, you know, what happens to that? So you install it, then you get to take it out?
I forget to answer for that, but actually, we are looking at how we install cameras on all of our buses. I know that we're updating the GPS on all of our buses, and so, because that was one of the concerns we heard from parents, where's my bus at? And so we're going back and actually making sure that we install GPS on all of our buses. And so, but I'll get the answer to that for you.
Hi, Liz Randolph, parent of 2 EBR students and leader to a nonprofit here. Quick question, I walked in a little bit late, so I do apologize for that, but is it fair to assume that the new legislation that the president of the association was talking about was taken into consideration when giving the stipends and setting up the budget? I think that's what I walked into. That's a point of clarification one. And then the second one, I know that there's a high dosage tutoring bill as well that the last time I read didn't include any additional funding to the district to ensure that that happened across the board. Was that taken into consideration as you build the budget when it comes to extra support regarding high dosage tutoring, any support that would impact that overall?
The answer to both questions, yes. Yeah.
I noticed that there is no change to child welfare and attendance as far as the number of people working, and we have a huge problem with truancy. Our former administration sliced that department down to nothing, bare bones. What can be done to help build that department back up and get actual humans in there instead of a computer program that just constantly sends letters to parents who have their children at school correctly?
And that's one of the things, Ms. Matthews, that we're looking at for our schools that need the most support, our AUS schools. We're looking at assigning CWA officers to those particular schools because we know that post-COVID truancy has been a challenge across the country. And so one of the things that we have to actually look at when you have elementary schools with daily average attendance under 90%, pre-COVID, that was alternative school. And so we know it really at the elementary level is more demanding upon the parent to get the kids to school. And so we need to look at other support systems outside of CWA to support those parents, especially with getting the younger kids to school. Middle and high schools, those kids sometimes they make choices on their own, but that's one of the things that we're looking at. We're adding the additional support for CWA with those schools who need the most support, those AUS schools. So we're writing in their comprehensive plan.
Can I respond to that real quickly? And I would like to just say, not as a baseline, yes, we have schools that need more support, but we need more than just 2 people in the department as a whole, because last year when I got a phone call for my child missing his second day, I got a call from child welfare and attendance because his turkey died and he's autistic. And so that was a major change for him. And I asked them why they weren't investigating a student that I taught at an A school who had been absent for like 15 days in the school year, so technically she should have already failed. And when I brought that to their attention, they finally made contact with that child, and guess what? Once they made contact with that parent, that child passed the school year because she started showing up to school. So once they decided, after they decided to attack me, they finally did what they were supposed to do with their job. But we need to look at the A schools too, because I made them go look at her, she passed the school year when she wasn't going to.
Good point, but it's not just also the responsibility of CWA. As being a former site-based principal, it's the responsibility of the school principal to make sure that we create an experience where kids want to come to school. That's the other side of it. And so we have to come up with strategies to make sure that kids are actually there, because what I noticed with looking at the data, when you looked at when kids were testing, schools did something different to get kids in school. So we need to do it every day, and not just during testing time. Yes, ma'am.
Another budget question.
You're getting involved.
I know. Is there any money in the proposed budget to increase online education for parents? And what I mean by that, like a parent, I know that they have like online, in-person things at the schools. However, a mom, it's 9 o'clock, she put the kids to school, her kid wouldn't do his homework, that she could log in and watch an online video about how to encourage her child to do its homework. And there would be a library of these videos that would be available to parents instead of having to get in a car or on a bus and go somewhere. Has the system considered a budget item just for online parental education?
I don't think that there's nothing in the budget that's item line for online parental engagement for parents. But each school, especially those schools that are Title I, what they do have in a Title I budget is a parental involvement budget, where it has dollars that are aligned to do those particular activities for parents.
My specific request
It's for a line item,
budget include something for all
parents.
district, school system-wide, a portal, a parent portal, okay, that you have a child enrolled in the school system, you have a portal of education, parental education, that you can access. That's my request.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're getting involved.
I'm also curious if any future ITEP exemptions have been anticipated or worked into this budget, which can get us also into the hole. So I don't know if we know of any renewals that are coming up in this fiscal year, or if we have any anticipated new applications for ITEP exemptions. I'd love to know how that would factor into the budget.
Yeah, anyone want to take that one?
It doesn't really need to factor into the budget because ITEP applications are for new economic activity that we wouldn't be projecting to receive tax revenue from anyway. So if an ITEP application came in, it would be for a new expansion at some plant somewhere. We would get 20% of the revenue that we would otherwise get without the ITEP exemption. So any revenue, there is no cut in revenue that comes from granting ITEP exemption. It's a reduction of what we would otherwise get in an increased amount because of the new economic activity. So there's nothing to factor into the budget for that.
Are there no ITEP applications set for renewal in this upcoming fiscal year?
That I don't know the answer to. Not that staff is aware of.
Right now it's 5:56. We had a few more board members walked in. I just seen board member Mark Blue, board member Nathan Ross, and we just had our board president, Ms. Carla Powell Lewis just walked in. And so if we don't have any more questions, we'll close out because there's a board meeting that I think the reason why majority of you are here this afternoon. And Ms. Powell Lewis, I see you just walked in, but if you have any comments, I'd like to, if you want to close out, say anything before we transition into the board meeting.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope that this has been informative for you. I hope that you've had the opportunity to ask as many questions as you like. As I shared at previous community meetings, always be as candid as possible. We want to make sure that we have good, raw, qualitative data, including quantitative when we can. So that way we can help to make the changes that we need and then also make the best decision for our kids and for our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you, and this officially closed out the budget presentation public. The next meeting will be this Thursday, June 20th, and it's freezing in here. Hess, can we turn down the heat? Turn up the heat. Can we?
So now you see what I'm saying about these schools in the air or the heat with the children, right, board members?
At least we don't have deferred maintenance and the air conditioner is working, because it would be much worse if it wasn't.
Let's say in about 5 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September. Tuesday, June 18th, 2024. Welcome to our special meeting of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board today in the wonderful Southeast Middle School. Let us stand. This meeting is now called to order. Let us stand. Invocation will be led by School Board Member Mr. Darius Lannis, and Pledge of Allegiance led by School Board Member Emily Sule.
Thank you, church. Can you all please bow your heads? Father God, we come to you inside of this place tonight, asking for your guidance, asking for your confidence, asking that you give us everything that we need to make the most informed decision on behalf of our community, on behalf of our employees, and most importantly, on behalf of our students. We ask that you help us to put our best foot forward as we move forward in working together in collectiveness and unity on behalf of our entire school district. May everybody say it, amen, amen, and amen.
Thank you. We will now have a roll call. Present. Present.
Present.
Here.
Present.
Present.
District 7, Mr. Goday. Here. District 8, Ms. Sule. We have.
Thank you. Alphabet B, items for consideration. B1, selection of superintendent applicants. Recommended action, discussion, or consideration of the selection of applicants for interviews for the position of EBR Superintendent of Schools. Is there a motion to begin this process? Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Lannis and seconded by Ms. Stewart and Mr. Shamley.
I'm sorry, excuse me. Sorry to jump in, Ms. Powell. We don't need a motion to open the process. You're merely opening the floor for selection/nominations. There'll be a motion later to close.
Okay, so this is a motion to open the floor for the selection.
Not a motion, you merely
Okay.
open the floor. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the floor is now open. The board will now select candidates for semifinalists for superintendent. I now open the floor for selections. As a reminder, the board adopted the following process for narrowing the selection of applicants. Using a form in packets provided to board members, each board member will nominate up to 5 names. The nominations of each board member will be read into the record. The board secretary and consultant will tally the nominations and announce the results. From those results, all candidates receiving a minimum of 3 nominations will proceed to interviews for semifinalists. If no candidate receives a minimum of 3 nominations, the top 5 candidates receiving nominations will proceed to interviews for semifinalists. Board members have had an opportunity to review applications and digital presentations of the applicants. Comments will be taken prior to selections of candidates. Board members will have 5 minutes for comment. Members of the public will have 3 minutes for comment. Time will be kept using the timer for the public. So even for us, fellow board members, we will be utilizing the timer that is normally used for the public. Are there any comments from the board at this time? Okay. Are there any comments from the public? You will have 3 minutes to comment and you can form a line at the podium if you have comments. Make sure that you state your name for the record. Mr. Shamlin.
These are comments on the applicants and selection
Comments
of
on the
applicants.
applicants.
There's cards.
Okay, so are there cards? Okay. If you will, listen, if you will, y'all can form a line at the podium, state your name for the record, and give your comment. And Madam Secretary, you're keeping time? Okay, thank you.
Good evening, board members and members of the public. My name is Tanya McMillan. I'm a parent of a child in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. I did take the time to look at every single interview and to go briefly over every single resume. I also did a little more deep dive digging online just to kind of get public perspectives in some of the districts where our applicants are coming from, because I think that's so important, because things that are on paper and good interviews can be taught and can be constructed, but public opinion and of the people who you actually served means a lot. And I have one candidate for myself that I would just like to ask you guys to consider moving to the next round. There was awesome candidates, and I'm so glad that we have a great pool of people to choose from. But there was one in particular, Mr. Adrian Hammett. I would really like to know more from him, hear more from him. He has a track record of proven results in a county whose demographics look a lot like ours in terms of racial and economic makeup. It's a much smaller district, but we can consider that a sample size, because you don't try your plan with the big group first, right? You try with a small group first, and he has proven results. So I would like that we consider moving him to the next round. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. My name is Hannah Amoroso. Wanted to say that I also really enjoyed watching the brief candidate interviews and was impressed at the quality of the applicants. What I would want to know about each of them moving forward is, number one, longevity. If EBR wanted to keep them, would these candidates be interested in staying for 7+ years? It is exhausting and disruptive to have to go through this every 3 years, and I don't want somebody who's not willing to stay for a long time. I would want to talk with the teachers union in their current position to see what their relationship with the union is. We can't afford somebody who has less than a stellar relationship with teachers. I'd like to talk to the school board members in their current position to gauge the quality of their working relationship. We need a board and a superintendent that work well with each other, and if possible, also gauge what parents and the community think about them. I would also like to make sure that there aren't any glaring incidents in their backgrounds that would have them starting off in a negative light. And of course, if you know me, you know that I also want to know their stance on our very early middle and high school start times. All that being said, Mr. Smith is my preference for this position. He checks all of the boxes for me. He has an excellent relationship with the teachers. He's been in our district forever and has paid his dues. And I believe deserves the opportunity to show us what he can do at the helm. There were other applicants that deserve consideration, and if you want to know my opinions on those, I'll be happy to share those as well. Thank you.
Storm Matthews. I've spoken to several of you and given you positive and negative about them. So here's my color-coded binder. Look where I am. I am in the red. These are the people I don't want to hear names of tonight, okay? I know some of these people may have done good, but Angela Domingue did not allow a PTO when she was the principal of Bel Air. As Bel Air's current, I see that look, Coach, I know. But as Bel Air's current PTO president, we have such a difficult time getting parents involved, and I just wonder if those years ago when the parents wanted to be involved, if she had cultivated that relationship, if I would be in the position I am today when I can't even get parents to come to prom or pay attention to prom or get them involved in those types of things, if she would have cultivated that and allowed that when Don Collins' son was there, if she would have allowed it, if I'd be in the same position I am today. I am not taking away from what she is doing at Helix. I've heard that she does a fantastic job. So I'm just saying from the parental perspective. That's why she's here. Jerry Gibson. Women do paperwork, men run the show. I wish him luck in Calcasieu, but I've already spread the word there. Bernard Taylor was by far one of our largest issues prior to our former superintendent. Ain't no way any of us are working for him again. Fabby Williams banned for life 25% of his staff in 6 months when he was principal in Chicago for not putting their lesson plans in a red box. So he is in my red binder. They have superb teaching performance. They had lesson plans. It just wasn't in a red box. That sounds a whole lot like somebody we just got rid of. And Nicola Hall. We see Nicola Hall, we all walking. We ain't waiting to hear anything else because that was laughable. But y'all know who I want. I want Adam. I'm sorry, I'm supposed to start saying Mr. Smith. I'm trying to be more professional. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robin White Clark. I'm a pre-K teacher here in East Baton Rouge Parish. I've been teaching here for about 27 years. I've been working in and around education, always been in Baton Rouge, doing my thing with education, consulting, teaching, working with families and parents, different principals, different kinds of schools, worked all across the district. I love what I do. I'm not cut out to be a superintendent. I don't want to supervise adults. I like teaching the small children. I do have a favorite, and I will say I looked at all of the interviews. I read every resume. I did my research. I have my checklist of what my perceptions were based on their resume. I looked at their interview. I critiqued how they spoke on their interview, not how they were dressed. I got the feeling as to if they had an anointing to do the work. And that's important because it's not always about every bell and whistle that you have behind your name. Sometimes you just have a gift to do what you do. And oftentimes you're hidden in plain sight. And so what's wrong with working your way up through the ranks, being a teacher, if there is such a thing as a rank? Because I'm a teacher, and I think it's a high calling. To be superintendent, you have to be a leader of leaders. We have a lot of talented people in East Baton Rouge Parish, especially at central office, in our classrooms, hidden in plain sight. What's wrong with a superintendent who is a teacher, an administrator, a principal, assistant principal, and now an interim superintendent serving our district right now in the room? I would appreciate a vote of confidence to allow Mr. Adam Smith to go forward to the next round of interviews. I'd love for you to just vote him in. You probably can't just do that right now, but I would appreciate you allowing the person who is doing the work to continue the work. You know, it takes a while to kind of learn Baton Rouge. If you're not from Baton Rouge, you don't even know the streets. You don't know where you're gonna live. You might have some friends here and there. But what about the people already doing the work, who already have a relationship with the board members, the schools, memory? I was in a school, and we went to a PD, and Mr. Smith spoke, And he said, don't be good, be great. He has been water in our glass, whatever the shape. Allow him to continue his work. He's one of the reasons I got my national board certification. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment in the room, we now have public comment online. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. We have two public comments online. The first is from Kathy Carmichael. She says, please nominate Dr. James Finney as a semifinalist candidate. Dr. Finney's knowledge of the EBR PSS is vast. He knows when and how to put students, teachers, and staff first. He understands the district's past, knows the present, and has a vision for the future. From transportation to academic programming and personnel to budgets and policy implementation, he is well equipped to carry out the duties of the superintendent. He understands the value of building relationships, has excellent problem-solving skills, and will form teams of capable people at the administrative and school-based level. Dr. Finney tells the truth and knows the law. Dr. Finney cares about kids. The community perks up and listens when Dr. Finney speaks at a school board meeting. He does his research, listens to parents and teachers, and asks the right questions. Now is the time to let Dr. James Finney lead our school district into the next chapter. Then Fairleigh Cook Jackson comments, I am honestly not understanding how this important vote is happening tonight. I find it very difficult to think that all of you were able to spend adequate time since Saturday to make such an important decision. After reading applications, thoughtfully watching all the interviews, and doing my best attempt at objective research, I have a list of 5 top candidates I would hope would be considered in an effort for objective consideration in this important decision. The areas of importance and the qualities of our next superintendent I held as priorities in making this list include experience and turnaround of low-performing schools, boldness and thought in decision-making, experience in successful community engagement/staff support, and proof of commitment and longevity. This list is in alphabetical order by first name: Adam Smith, Adrian Hamate, David Hardy, Chris Moheap, and Verna Ruffin. That concludes the internet comments.
Thank you. Are there any further comments from the board at this time? Okay. You have a selection form in your packets, fellow board members. Please sign, print, and date the form. You may now select up to 5 names and turn your form into Ms. Arman.
Here you go. Appreciate you. Let him be him. I know. I just wanted to get my little paper to April, that's all. Yep. That's what he doing? They gonna get you on camera?
I will now read into the record the selections of candidates of all board members. Mr. Mark Ballou, Adam Smith, Andrea Zayas, Kevin George, Patrick Jenkins. Mr. Darius Lannis, Adam Smith, James Finney, Nicola Hall. Miss Carla Powell-Lewis, Adam Smith, Adrian Hammett, James Finney, and Verna Ruffin. Miss Shoshone Stewart, Adam Smith, and Nicola Hall. Mr. Cliff Lewis, Adam Smith. Mr. Nathaniel Russ, never knew your name was Nathaniel. Mr. Nathaniel Russ, Andre Azias, Kevin George, Krish Mohip, and Patrick Jenkins. Mr. Michael Gode, Adam Smith, Fabi Williams, Jerry Gibson, Kevin George, and Krish Mohip. Mrs. Emily Sule, Adrian Hammett, Andre Azias, Kevin George, Krish Mohip, Patrick Jenkins. Mr. Patrick Martin, Adam Smith, Andrea Zayas, Kevin George, Krish Mohip, and Patrick Jenkins. Okay. Based upon these selections, the following candidates, you want to go ahead? Yes. Okay, so we're going to do a final tally just to make sure that we're completely accurate with those who will go on to the semifinalist round. Based upon these selections, the following candidates will be invited to return as semifinalists: Mr. Adam Smith, Ms. Andrea Zayas, Mr. Kevin George, Ms. Krish Mohip, Mr. Oh, Lord, I do apologize if you're listening. Mr. Krish Mohip and Mr. Patrick Jenkins. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, Mr. Shamlin?
So now, Ms. Powell, you'll entertain a motion to close the floor to selection/nominations with a second.
Okay. So is there a motion to close the floor? It has been moved by Mr. Martin. It has been seconded by Mr. Lannis that we close the floor for nominations of semifinalists.
And,
Okay?
and then there'll be allow public comment on the closing of the floor.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so I'm assuming comments from the board? Okay, are there any comments from the board?
Thank you all for coming out. I think the decision here is clear. While we can't speak on it at this time, I think our community has said what they wanted. It has been displayed several times, and I just ask that our board do the right thing when that time does come. Appreciate it.
Excuse me, Madam President.
Yes,
I think that some of the names sound somewhat alike, and I think that we need to redetermine that we have counted the votes accurately and we have announced the correct semifinalists.
Okay, so there needs to be a recount?
I believe the count is correct. I think that there was a pronunciation of names
Okay.
that
Okay.
needs to be corrected. And specifically, I think that we need to count votes for Adrian Hammett
Okay,
and Andrea Zayas. So we had 2 for Adrian Hammett,
that is correct.
and we had 4 for Andrea Zayas.
Andrea Zayas, yes. So would you like for me to read that aloud? I can. Okay,
Yes, please.
all right. Once again, the names are as follows of those that are moving on to the semifinalist round. Mr. Adam Smith with 7 votes. Ms. Andrea Zayas with 4 votes. Mr. Kevin George with 5 votes. Mr. Krish Mohip with 4 votes. Mr. Patrick Jenkins with 4 votes.
And that matches. Thank you very much.
Okay, no problem. All right, any additional board comment at this time? Okay, seeing none, we will now have comments from the public. Again, feel free to make your line at the podium and state your name for the record if you have a comment. Okay, seeing none, okay, Ms. McMillan?
Tanya McMillan, parent of a child in East Baton Rouge Parish School System. I'm going to say this and I'm going to get out of here. I'm very disappointed. We had community forums and we told you guys what we wanted. We wanted to see in a leader. And 2 of the people on your short list are going to be disqualified on personal things alone. So if y'all were serious about that and y'all really wanted our input, make it make sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments from the public? Seeing none, we will return to comments from the board. Okay, Mr. Shamlin, so at this point, do we move on to the next item? Okay, all right. We will now entertain a roll call vote. Please speak loudly and clearly, you all. I know there are two mics. If you guys want the mic, I can pass it to you.
Yes.
District 2, Mr. Lannis.
Yes, ma'am.
District 3, Mr. Powell Lewis.
Yes.
District 4, Ms. Stewart. Yes. District 5, Ms. Lewis.
Yes.
District 6, Mr. Russ.
Yes.
District 7, Mr. Gode.
Yes.
District 8, Ms. Suley. District 9, Vice President Martin.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Now, B2, timeline. Recommended action, consideration of a request for the approval of the revised timeline. Is there a motion? It has been moved by Mr. Lannis. Is there a second?
A2. Move to advance options A1 and A2.
Or alternatively, we could move to push A1 and A2 to Thursday and
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That way we have more time to go. Right. Okay. So I move that we push move both option A1 and A2 to this Thursday for further discussion.
Okay. Okay, it has been moved by Mr. Lannis and seconded by Mr. Martin that we move option A1 and option A2 to Thursday's board meeting, which would be June 20th. Okay, comments from the board at this time?
I've got a question about July 8th. So, I mean, and I will not be in attendance next Thursday night, but I got a question about July 8th, option 2A. The question is, it says panel interviews with 3 finalists, multiple groups. Why? What are the multiple groups?
Ms. Slaughter, would you like to come to the mic? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, President. Those would be internal groups, potentially teachers, parents, people have suggested principals, mix of in-house personnel, as well as community leaders, business leaders, concerned citizens. So in the last search, each board member, for example, was allowed to nominate 2 people that fit in each one of those categories, and then the public was also invited. So that way you ensured that people who had certain interests or wanted to ask certain questions along the lines of their own interest would have the opportunity to do it. Board members are invited to attend, but it is not required, and certainly we would not expect the whole board to be in the same meeting.
Why not?
Oh, you're more than welcome, Coach.
Why not all 9 board members be there?
Oh, they certainly could. You certainly could. It's going to be a long day, and the next morning is going to be long too. So
I don't see why all 8 of my colleagues. Well, make me understand. Help me understand.
The way it worked the last time, which I think did very well, you had 3 meetings going on at the same time. So let's say we have 3 finalists. You had Group A meeting with finalist 1, and Group B meeting with finalist 2, and Group C meeting with finalist 3. And A might be teachers and parents. B might be community members. C might be business folks. And they would meet for like an hour and a half. And then the bell rings and you swap. And so each candidate meets with each of the 3 different groups during the course of that day and a half. And we as board members can be there, but this is really a chance for the public to be able to ask questions of the thing. This is not the board interview. The board interview will come later. Okay, but the board members can be there, but this is a chance for the public to be able to sit and meet the candidates and ask the questions. This is this goes much more in depth than just a meet and greet with crackers and stuff that anyone wanted to, because it gives them an hour and a half to sit there and directly ask questions to the candidates. So that was the thinking, and it's a day and a half to do that, because you can't stack these up, one on top of the other. You wear the candidates out. But that was what we did last time, and it worked very well.
No, that's, I understand, doesn't necessarily mean I agree with, but I understand what you're saying.
I think my input on that is, as a board member, I would like to know the input of all those persons that participate within those groups, which that can't be done if they're going simultaneously. But as a board member, I would like to know the input when questioning and those interviews take place, to get that feedback for us to be able to make a conscious decision based off of that feedback. So that's kind of difficult to be able to do. I don't know if something can be done as a result of that, but as a board member, to have those meetings going on simultaneously, I'm eager to, find out what's going on within them.
And one of the things that we discussed that after Thursday we can bake into the timeline is the opportunity to have an online survey for people who attended. Some of the staff is more familiar with this than me, but a QR code, there are people who know how to do this. And so we could have that for the attendees, and they could provide you. I think it's very important that you have that feedback. We're asking people to come out, listen to candidates, talk to candidates, and so, and we can record the interviews so that people can see them. I think that's all part of transparency, but I also think as school board members, you want that feedback. So that was the best way we could figure out, and the easiest way to get that specific. But if we record them, everyone can watch the whole thing. Yes. What, the what?
Well, the problem is, if you got 3 interviews, each of them 2 hours, that's 6 hours one day, 6 hours the next day, 6 hours the next day. You're going to be taking up 3 or 4 days just doing these community interviews. And the community would have to come 3 different days to do the interviews, whereas if they, it just gets unwieldy. And so you could record them, so if any board member wants to go back and look at them, they could easily go back and look at them.
Okay, colleagues, let us remember, we want to continue with allowing everyone to have the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Madam President. I think I like that approach. I think Ms. Stewart raises the proper point, which is we've got to get feedback so that we can take these. That's the whole purpose, is so that we can take these views into account. I think there's the formal feedback through the mechanism you described. We also have the opportunity, I think, Ms. Stewart, to have informal feedback where we talk to the people that like we put onto those groups and stuff like that, just person to person, because we know them and we get their input on that. I would like to suggest that. That I think that aspect of it still needs some fleshing out, and so I would like to see particularly a concrete recommendation, perhaps tomorrow, so that we can consider it for Thursday, on which groups we would meet and how the members of those groups would be selected. Whether it's, as you said, 2 board members, two people per board member makes for a pretty big group in all those different groups, but that may be appropriate. I would also, like us to consider whether maybe some of those very specific details would be, could be fleshed out over the next week, with the help of the ad hoc search committee as well. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to take any authority away from this board at all. But I also think that at a certain point, things have to be scheduled, which schools they're taking on tours to visit and whatnot. It's challenging getting us all together for that. So I'd like us to think about that. But at any rate, I think we can get this fleshed out and then consider it more fully on Thursday. The thing in particular I like about option 2A is I think July 8th is the right day to make the decision, for us to make that final decision. That gives us enough time. It doesn't require us to work or anybody to come in, break their vacation, or miss the meeting because they're on vacation the week of July 4th. So I like that aspect of it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Russ.
Thank you. Just a couple pieces of feedback too. I do like the concept of us doing the community meetings and having the board nominate folks to serve on those so that we've got a good cross-section across the community of people that can meet with those. Couple notes. I do see on option A1 and A2, we moved the meeting to the 26th, which thank you for that, so that I can attend. But I will point out, Mr. Gode brought up that that only gives us about 2 days for the board to go through those vision videos that we're going to receive. And so another suggestion would be we could move it to a later time on the 27th, perhaps 7 p.m. I'm sure I could be there by then, and that would be accommodable. Or move it to the following day, the 28th, as much as I hate to be at the school board office on a Friday. But just some things to think about. As well, I noticed that our end date on option A2, which I favor, is July 11th. That's also the day of the cow. And I don't know how long that meeting could take, but my concern is that could turn into quite a slog if we end up taking a lot of time to discuss or whatever might come out of that first meeting. Then we got to go into the committee of the whole, and we could run into time issues. So we may want to look at how we can adjust that. Thanks.
Thank you. I share the concern with the short timeline between getting the videos and having to make a finalist selection. And either the 27th later, I would even suggest we do it the 28th. Have the meeting on Friday the 28th, like at 5 o'clock, because the whole purpose of this is to be able to see these. The public will be seeing these interviews, and we need to have some time to get feedback on how all of these go through, because we're going to have 5 different videos, and these videos will be a little bit longer and probably more intense than what we have. So that's something I'd like to see us consider. The second thing is we kind of skipped over fast, but tomorrow it's notify the finalists and set expectation for the Cognia video. I'd like to know what is the expectation for the Cognia video, because if we just say go comment on what Cognia came out with, we're going to get a whole spread. So I think we need to tighten that down and define what is it out of the Cognia video we want them to address, or how we want to address them. I think you did a very good job on the initial videos where they all got the same questions. And I think on this one, we want them to be able to expound more, but I do think we need to give them guidance on what it is, or we won't have anything that we can compare to any other. And I think it's also important they get some free wheel time where they can say anything they want to say about the Cognia part. And then the last part I had was on it said here, I'm just reading through here, on the questions for the finalist. On the board created questions, that's all really good, but I think it's very important because we're going to have people coming from different walks of life, some people from Louisiana, some people from not, and a whole different set of experiences and things. And I would like us, as every board member, to have the ability to ask at least one question that isn't scripted, because a scripted question for one candidate might be totally irrelevant for another candidate. And so I think we need to have the ability as each board member to ask a question. This is the most important decision we make, and I would like to see us have that, because if I don't want to walk away having to have voted not being able to ask a question I really wanted to have answered. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I would also like to add as well. Don't talk about me, Ms. Stewart. All right, now press stop so it shouldn't do it again. Thank you so much for this work. Dr. Slaughter, I do apologize. I called you Ms. Slaughter earlier. And thank you to all of our colleagues for your comments as well. I want to make sure that as we look at the different parts of the different options, that we not get them confused. So there won't be, if we're choosing option A2, then there won't be live interviews on the June 27th. So when you look at that, okay. Yes, and that's on the 26th, if you were looking at option A2. Also, I would just like to share, you guys, that I had the opportunity to participate with Dr. Slaughter and Mr. Shamlin in this process, and the main difference between option A1 and A2 is that option A1 allows the process to end on July 1st with a very heavy day of finalist interviews with those predetermined board questions, executive session optional, and then superintendent selection. Right above that, and I just wanted to mention this as well, because I had the opportunity to have a conversation with one of my board members, and that was Mr. Russ. First, Mr. Russ shared that he has served on one of the previous panels for interviewing one of the previous searches, and he gave positive thoughts and feedback in regards to that, but also we also saw the relevance in having a community meet and greet. And that is so that way those parents and community members who may not be chosen for a panel can still get a chance to meet those candidates as well. And then also it's important that we see how the candidates interact as the face of the district. And so we know that as a superintendent, it's not just, your nose down to the ground and doing work, but at the same time, you have to be communicable. So you have to be able to communicate with the public as well. So I know that was one of the thoughts, and it's not mentioned on the page in option A2, but that was one of the thought patterns for 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., that there would be more than one panel discussion, and then also an opportunity just for a general, I'm going to say that or meet and greet as well. So I wanted to mention that also. But still in all, I like the dialogue that we're having in regards to this. I totally agree with waiting until Thursday to give us some more time to talk about this process as well, or to think around this process also. Okay? All right. So have we heard public comment yet?
We have not heard public comments yet.
Okay. So public comment, and then we're going to go back to board comment. And Coach, you will be the first for board comment. Same. State your name for the record and give your public comment. Ms. Matthews.
Storm Matthews. So if y'all put this off until Thursday, that only leaves what's supposed to happen tomorrow. So I still question, do those candidates still get that information on their video during that time? Do those pieces of this timeline still happen? Because this is a very short timeline. And so I understand that it's Tuesday and Thursday doesn't seem like it's a long time. But when you're 1 out of 5 people that is trying to get this position, and you have a lot of these things that you're trying to do, those 2 days can make a big difference, especially when you are already a working, as several of these people are, working superintendents. So I just think that we should look at this. We said we were going to look at this timeline. We said we were going to vote on it tonight. We should have been prepared to vote on it tonight. And that's what, even if, there's one of these dates that I definitely don't like, that doesn't work in the person I want's favor, but I'm prepared to speak on it for tonight. I just, I think we need to put into mind, yes, these people are taking away from what they're trying to do to come and take out of their time, and I think that we do need to respect their time, all 5 of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further public comments in the room, online comments.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. First, we have Fairleigh Cook Jackson, who says, first, I am very grateful for your inclusion of the consultant suggestions. I am happy to own these as my submission. I see that none of the other options include community interviews as I suggested, and I am hopeful these will be integrated into the other timelines proposed. The dates of July 9th and 10th were merely suggestions. Any dates agreed upon as reasonable by the board and SSA should be considered in every effort to include community interviews. Thank you again. And Rochelle Washington Scott says, it is imperative that we select a new superintendent by July 1st. This timeline is crucial for several reasons, aligning with the culture, vision, and morale of our community, especially with the upcoming school year starting in August. Pros of selecting by July 1st. Smooth transition. Selecting a superintendent by July 1st allows for a seamless transition of leadership. This is vital for maintaining stability and ensuring that planning for the new school year can proceed without disruption. Strategic planning. Early selection provides the superintendent adequate time to review and align with the district's strategic goals, allowing them to implement necessary changes and improvements before the school year begins. Boosting morale. A timely appointment will boost the morale of our staff, students, and community by demonstrating a commitment to strong leadership and stability. This can lead to increased confidence in the district's direction and future. Community engagement. The new superintendent will have the opportunity to engage with the community, understand its unique cultural context, and build relationships that are crucial for fostering a positive and inclusive school environment. Cons of selecting later. Delayed decision-making. Delaying the selection beyond July 1st could result in a lack of clear leadership during a critical planning period, leading to potential confusion and inefficiencies. Impact on school opening. A late selection may not give the new superintendent enough time to effectively prepare for the new school year, potentially affecting the quality of education and operations as the year begins. Lower morale. Uncertainty and prolonged transitions can negatively impact staff and community morale, potentially leading to anxiety and a lack of confidence in the district's leadership. In conclusion, selecting the superintendent by July 1st aligns with our community's cultural values of preparedness, proactive leadership, and stability. It ensures that we are well positioned for a successful start to the new school year, maintaining the vision and morale that are essential for our district's continued growth and success.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments from the public, we will now return to comments from the board.
Just very quickly for the board, the thing that's not written in here is that, like on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and those evenings and stuff like that, what was typically done is several board members would take out a candidate for dinner or something like that, or meet them for breakfast, where we could have some informal one-on-one time. Obviously, no more than like 3 board members, because we don't want to get anything like that, but be able to have some informal time with each of the candidates to try to get to know them a little bit more personally and understand what that's not written on here, but that's implied.
Okay. All right. So Mr. Lewis and then Mr. Martin.
Christelle, and this question to Mike as well. Is it any way that these meetings could take place one after the other instead of going on simultaneously? Have you?
You'd have 6 hours and 6 hours and 6 hours. You'd have to take 3 days to do it.
I mean, but could we narrow it down to where it's just 3? I mean, how many different community groups are going to be involved? Besides, I mean, I heard you say business. I heard you say teachers, principals.
We have gotten lots of input, Coach, about groups. And so we have gotten multiple requests for teachers/principals, school personnel as one, educators as one group or sets of groups. The other one is to take community groups and somehow figure out how they may match up together. And so the idea was community at large, business community, possibly parents, either in one group or the other. It's not uncommon to run simultaneous. And of course, we don't know if you're going to have 1 finalist or 3 finalists. You have 6 semifinalists. The more finalists you have, the more you're working logistically. But I will say that the most effective searches that we have done and we've observed would have those meetings in the same building. So different candidates would be in different rooms, but there would be an opportunity for people to float between rooms, et cetera. So it's never a perfect
know.
system.
Lots of moving pieces, I
Lots of
understand.
moving pieces and parts. Yes, sir.
And it is extremely important that all these groups we're naming and some of the groups we haven't named have an opportunity to sit in front of
Yes.
these people and ask questions.
Yes.
Because this is a very important decision for this community, for this school district.
Right, right.
So,
And you have many partners in nonprofit organizations,
Yes, ma'am.
churches, et cetera. So we want to do the best we can to find convenient locations so that people could take even some time out of their day. We're going to be asking candidates to give up a fair amount of their time.
Yes,
They're probably going to have to spend 3 nights in Baton Rouge. Some of them are here, some of them are not. But we think that a thorough vetting and opportunity for you as board members to really see people in different settings, as some of you have mentioned, is important, and the community too as well. So.
Well, Baton Rouge is a fun place, so I don't think they'll mind spending, a couple nights here. Okay, thank you.
That is also one thing in a search that you do want to see, is how candidates react in different settings.
fun night.
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. Martin.
Thank you. I second Mr. Goday's desire that I think there's a lot of value to have these informal, slightly less formal meals with, random selection or whatever of 3 board members, for each, if there's 3 semifinalists, right? So what I would hope, is, I know you've already done some work on kind of fleshing out what's option A2 right now in a little more detail. I would encourage you to do that some more in hopes that we could offer, kind of an A3 in lieu of these 2 based on the feedback that you're hearing, and definitely the need for greater specificity so that this board is deciding which groups that we're going to meet, that we're going to have meetings with. We obviously are going to need to revise the timeline some as well, because as I forget which of my colleagues noted it, or as Ms. Matthews, noted it, we're not going to be able to start on the 19th tomorrow. I think there is clear that it's public record now who we've selected, so you can go ahead and notify them. But in terms of giving them the rest of the directions, I don't think we can do that. But anyway, I would encourage you to provide a more fleshed out version of A2 for consideration.
We'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, also, I would like to add as well that when we think about the vision videos, you all, I did make a special request of SSA Consulting, because we know that we went through the exercise of discussing board and community priorities, and I want to make sure that we use that data and that we include it in this process. So with that in mind, that was my request, that the candidates be familiar with our district and be familiar with what our priorities are, and are able to use tangible information that we have provided to share what their vision for our district would look like moving forward. We need to know that they are vested long before they begin their service. Okay? All right? Mr. Russ.
Okay, I had one more thing I remembered I wanted to ask about that I would ask the SSA, maybe you could give us some best practices on this. There's in both of these plans, A1, A2 on June 25th, it says board submits interview questions for finalists. I would like to know what the criteria for how we're going to select those questions. Is it going to be a number from each board member? Is it going to be predetermined? And I think Mr. Goday brought that up, is we want to make sure as board members that we're thorough in the things that we really want to get on the record are going to be heard and answered. So I would ask that we flesh that out a little bit if we can. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Seeing no further board comment at this time, we will now entertain a vote, and the vote is on the motion to send option 1A and, A1 and A2 to the board meeting on June 20th for further discussion. So that's the motion that's on the floor. Okay, Madam Secretary.
District 1, Mr. Blue? Yes. District 2, Mr. Lannis? Yay. District 3, President Powell Lewis?
Yes.
District 4, Ms. Stewart? Yes. District 5, Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
District 6, Mr. Russ? Yay. District 7, Mr. Gode?
Yes.
District 8, Ms. Sule? Yes. District 9, Vice President Martin?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Item C1, announcement of meetings. Regular meeting to be held June 20th, 2024, immediately following the public hearing board workshop in the central office boardroom. Committee of the Whole to be held July 11th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the central office boardroom. Regular meeting to be held July 18th at 5 p.m. in the central office boardroom. Colleagues, don't forget to continue to bring your spirit gear from the schools that are in your district. Mr. Gode, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.